Greetings, fellow explorers of the vast universe within. I'm Rishabh Kasaudan, and today we embark on an extraordinary voyage, not to distant galaxies but into the equally mysterious and fascinating cosmos of the human mind. We often marvel at the complexity of nebulae or the enigmatic nature of black holes, yet right here, within our own skulls, resides an engine of thought and emotion that shapes our entire reality. It's a universe of its own, with its own laws, its own quirks, and its own breathtaking phenomena. Understanding these inner workings isn't just an academic exercise, it's a practical toolkit for navigating the complexities of existence. Consider this: the same curiosity that drives us to understand the Big Bang can be turned inward, to illuminate the very processes that allow us to curious in the first place. We're talking about the subtle currents of thought, the unseen biases, the powerful cognitive frameworks that dictate our choices, our relationships, and our perception of the world. It's psychology, yes, but viewed through a lens of profound wonder and practical application. These aren't just theories, they are insights into the operating system of. Without wasting your time, we're going to share 12 psychological facts with you that you can easily apply in your daily life starting today to make it simpler. Once you know these, you won't remain the same person. We're going to decode some of the mind's most intriguing behaviors, offering you not just knowledge, but the power to transform your daily interactions and understanding of yourself and others. Prepare to have your perspective shifted, perhaps even a little bit expanded as we delve into these mind-blowing truths. Let's begin with a phenomenon that paradoxically highlights the importance of things by their very absence. It's called the feature-positive effect, and it speaks to a curious quirk in our human valuation system. Think about it. How often do we truly, deeply appreciate the air we breathe, the clean water that flows from our taps, the steady presence of a loved one? More often than not, it's when these fundamental elements are threatened, or worse, removed, that their immense value crashes into our consciousness like a rogue asteroid. It's as if our brains are wired to register the of a feature more readily than its absence, until that absence creates a void too significant to ignore. This isn't just about basic necessities, though those are powerful examples. Consider a long-term relationship, a friendship, or even a stable job. The daily comforts, the predictable support, the unspoken understandings. These can become like background radiation, always there, barely noticed. But let that relationship fracture, that friendship fade, or that job disappear, and suddenly, the intricate tapestry of benefits it provided becomes starkly, painfully clear. We're suddenly confronted with the negative space, the feature negative, and its impact can be profound. It's a testament to how easily we adapt to constants, and how jarring their removal can be. The evolutionary underpinnings of this might relate to survival. Our ancestors likely benefited from noticing new threats, a predator appearing a positive feature, more than the continued absence of one. But in our complex modern lives, this cognitive habit can lead to a kind of hedonic adaptation, where we take good things for granted. The wisdom here isn't to live in constant fear of loss, but to cultivate an active appreciation for the positive features currently gracing our lives. To consciously acknowledge the value of what's present, rather than waiting for its absence to teach us its worth. So, the feature-positive effect serves as a cosmic reminder from our own psychology. Don't wait for the stars to go out to appreciate their light. Practice gratitude not as a platitude, but as a cognitive tool to counteract this inherent bias. Recognize the silent, steady contributions to your well-being, the reliable friend, the functioning infrastructure, the simple peace of a quiet morning. By doing so, you're essentially short-circuiting a psychological default and enriching your experience of the present moment, which, as we know, is all we truly ever have. Now, let's journey deeper into the more ancient corridors of our minds, to what some call the reptilian brain, the core that's been with us through eons of evolution. Here, priorities are stark and deeply ingrained. Susan Weinschenk, in her insightful book, illuminates a fundamental truth. Our brains are hardwired to pay immediate and profound attention to three critical things: food, procreation, and danger. These aren't just preferences, they are survival imperatives, etched into our neural pathways by millennia of natural selection. Everything else, in a primal sense, is secondary. Think about the sheer, almost magnetic pull these three elements have on our attention. A whiff of baking bread, the sight of a delectable meal when you're hungry, your focus narrows, your senses heighten. The subtle, or not so subtle, cues related to attraction and mating, they capture our gaze, influence our behavior, and drive a significant portion of human endeavor, from art to commerce. And danger? A sudden loud noise, a threatening gesture, the hint of something amiss. Your entire system snaps to high alert, adrenaline surges, and your cognitive resources are instantly reallocated to assess and respond to the potential threat. This is the brain in survival mode. This ancient programming has profound implications for how we navigate the modern world. Marketers know it, which is why advertisements so often leverage imagery of delicious food, attractive people, or invoke a sense of urgency or fear of missing out, a subtle form of perceived danger to our social standing or resources. Content creators understand it, as evidenced by the popularity of cooking shows, romantic dramas, and thrilling action sequences. Our sophisticated modern cortex may overlay these primal drives with layers of reason and culture, but the underlying architecture remains powerfully influential. Understanding this primal trinity isn't about succumbing to base instincts, it's about recognizing the powerful undercurrents that shape our attention and motivation. It allows us to be more discerning consumers of information, more aware of our own impulses, and perhaps even more compassionate towards ourselves and others when these fundamental drives assert themselves. It's a reminder that beneath our civilized veneer we are still creatures of survival, carrying the legacy of our ancestors in the very way our brains prioritize the world. And knowing this, we can choose how to engage with these potent forces. Let's explore a fascinating social dynamic, one that seems counterintuitive in a world that often prizes overt displays of knowledge. It's what we might call the playing dumb effect, beautifully illustrated by a story from Thomas Erickson's. He recounts an experience with a woman named Helena, who, despite her evident intelligence and competence, had a remarkable ability to make others feel brilliant and eager to share their insights. Her secret? She often adopted a stance of curious inquiry, asking questions that allowed others to explain things to her, even if she might have already known the answers. This wasn't about genuine ignorance, but a strategic, almost Socratic humility. By playing dumb, or perhaps more accurately playing curious, Helena created an environment where others felt valued for their knowledge. People love to feel smart, to be the expert, to share what they know. When you provide them with that opportunity, you're not just gaining information, you're building rapport, fostering goodwill, and making the other person feel genuinely good in your presence. It's a subtle shift from asserting your own knowledge to inviting the knowledge of others. Think about conversations you've had. When someone lectures or dominates with their expertise, it can feel overwhelming, even alienating. But when someone asks thoughtful questions, listens intently, and makes you feel like your perspective is insightful, the connection deepens. This approach isn't about being disingenuous, it's about prioritizing connection and mutual understanding over the need to be perceived as the most knowledgeable person in the room. It allows for a more organic flow of information and a more positive interpersonal dynamic. The playing dumb effect, therefore, is a powerful tool for improving not just conversation skills, but also for building stronger relationships. It encourages active listening, empathy, and a genuine interest in what others have to say. By occasionally stepping back from the expert role and embracing the role of the eager learner, you can leave a remarkably positive and lasting impression. It's a reminder that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is to let someone else feel like the smartest person in the universe, or at least in that particular conversation. Chapter 4. The Art of the Nudge. Shaping decisions through selective choices. We like to think of ourselves as rational beings, making choices based on pure logic and independent thought. But the cosmos of our minds is far more susceptible to subtle influences than we often realize. One of the most potent of these is the way choices are presented to us. When you provide a choice, even if those choices are carefully curated, you can significantly steer the outcome. It's a fundamental principle of behavioral economics and psychology, tapping into our desire for autonomy while gently guiding us down a preferred path. Consider the classic example of a skilled waiter in a restaurant. Instead of asking, "Would you like dessert?" a question that invites a simple yes or no, with no being an easy out. They might ask, "Will it be the rich chocolate lava cake, or our refreshing lemon sorbet tonight?" Suddenly the question isn't if you'll have dessert, but which dessert you'll choose. The frame has shifted, and the likelihood of a sale increases. This isn't overt manipulation, but a sophisticated understanding of how choice architecture influences behavior. This principle extends far beyond the dining room. Think about how tech companies like Apple present their product lines. You're not just offered an iPhone, you're offered the iPhone 15, the iPhone 15 Plus, the iPhone 15 Pro, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, each with slightly different features and price points. This array of options gives the consumer a sense of control and personalization, even though the choices are all within the Apple ecosystem. The decision becomes less about whether to buy an Apple product and more about which Apple product best suits their perceived needs from the presented selection. The power of providing selective choices lies in its subtlety. It respects the individual's desire to choose while framing those choices in a way that makes a particular outcome more probable. It's a technique used in parenting. Do you want to wear the red shirt or the blue shirt? in marketing, in policymaking, and even in personal negotiations. Understanding this effect empowers us not only to recognize when it's being used, but also to employ it ethically and effectively in our own communications, guiding others towards mutually beneficial decisions by offering them a sense of agency within a structured set of options. Chapter 5. The Sage's Self-Doubt. When brilliance underestimates itself, the total tendency. Here's a fascinating paradox that often plays out in the minds of highly intelligent and competent individuals. What we'll term the total tendency for our purposes, reflecting a specific kind of self-assessment. It's a phenomenon where those who genuinely possess significant knowledge and skills can, counterintuitively, underestimate their own abilities, or assume that tasks they find easy are equally easy for everyone else. This isn't false modesty, it's a genuine cognitive blind spot, a sort of inverse of the Dunning-Kruger effect where the unskilled overestimate their prowess. The truly skilled sometimes don't realize how far ahead they are. Imagine a brilliant astrophysicist who, when explaining a complex cosmic concept, assumes their audience grasps the foundational principles as readily as they do. Or a gifted musician who can't quite comprehend why others struggle with a difficult passage they mastered with relative ease. This isn't arrogance, it's often a genuine difficulty in gauging the average level of understanding or skill in a particular domain, because their own experience is one of high proficiency. They might think, if it's easy for me, it must be easy for others, leading to an underestimation of their own expertise. This total tendency can have several consequences. It might lead to highly capable individuals feeling like imposters, doubting their achievements despite ample evidence of their competence. They might also be less effective communicators or teachers if they can't accurately calibrate their explanations to their audience's level. The burden of knowledge in this sense can sometimes obscure the landscape of common understanding. It highlights the importance of not just acquiring knowledge but also developing metacognition, the awareness of one's own thought processes and an understanding of how others might perceive and process information differently. The antidote to this tendency isn't to diminish one's intelligence, but to cultivate self-awareness and empathy. It involves actively seeking feedback, consciously remembering the learning curve they themselves once navigated, and making an effort to understand the perspectives of those with different levels of expertise. Continuous learning, in this context, isn't just about accumulating more facts. It's about learning how to share that knowledge effectively, and how to accurately perceive one's own place in the intellectual cosmos. It's a call for brilliance to be paired with a grounded understanding of the human spectrum of knowledge. Chapter 6. The Franklin Maneuver, Forging Bonds by Requesting Favors. Let us now turn our attention to a rather charming psychological principle known as the Ben Franklin effect. It's named after the venerable American polymath, Benjamin Franklin, who, as the story goes, employed a clever strategy to win over a critic. Instead of showering the man with compliments or favors, Franklin did something rather unexpected. He asked to borrow a rare and valuable book from his rival's library. The rival, likely flattered by the request from such an esteemed figure, obliged. Franklin returned the book promptly with a thank you note, and remarkably the two men became lifelong friends. The psychology at play here is fascinating. Common wisdom might suggest that doing a favor for someone makes them like you more, but the Ben Franklin effect posits the opposite. When you do a favor for someone, you tend to like them more. The cognitive dissonance here is key. Our minds strive for consistency. If I've gone out of my way to help this person, my brain reasons, then this person must be worthy of my help. Therefore, I must like them. It's a subtle recalibration of our feelings to align with our actions. Think about the implications. Asking for a small, reasonable favor can be a surprisingly effective way to build rapport and even mend strained relationships. It signals a degree of trust and respect for the other person's resources or knowledge. It allows them to feel helpful, competent, and magnanimous. Of course, the nature of the request is crucial. It shouldn't be overly burdensome or exploitative. A request to borrow a book, ask for a small piece of advice, or seek a minor assistance can often work wonders. So, the Ben Franklin effect isn't just a historical anecdote, it's a practical tool for social navigation. It flips the script on traditional notions of ingratiation. Instead of giving, you ask. In doing so, you're not just receiving assistance, you're potentially forging a stronger connection by allowing someone else the psychological satisfaction of having been helpful to you. It's a testament to the intricate and often counterintuitive ways our minds construct our social realities, one small favor at a time. This is a cosmic dance of social dynamics, where a simple request can shift the gravitational pull between two individuals. We are beings who construct our reality not just from direct experience but significantly from the stories we consume. This brings us to a crucial concept known as the mean world syndrome, a term coined by the communications scholar Dr. George Gerbner. He proposed that the more televised violence and negativity a person consumes, the more likely they are to perceive the world as a dangerous and frightening place. It's as if the constant bombardment of crime, conflict and catastrophe recalibrates our internal sense of safety and trust, often painting a picture far grimmer than objective reality might warrant. Think about the relentless news cycles, the dramatic television shows, the sensationalized social media feeds. While these platforms can provide valuable information and entertainment, they're often disproportionate focus on the negative. Because, let's face it, if it bleeds, it leads, can create a pervasive sense of anxiety and cynicism. If your daily media diet consists primarily of stories about disasters, betrayals and violence, your brain, quite reasonably, begins to build a model of the world that reflects this input. You might become more fearful of strangers, more pessimistic about the future, and more distrustful of your fellow human beings. This isn't to say that bad things don't happen in the world, they certainly do. However, the mean world syndrome suggests that the frequency and intensity with which these events are portrayed in media can skew our perception of their prevalence. Our brains are pattern recognition machines, and if the pattern they're consistently fed is one of threat and hostility, that becomes the expected norm. This can impact our mental health, our social interactions, and even our civic engagement. If we believe the world is inherently mean, we may be less likely to reach out, to trust, or to participate in building a better one. The crucial insight here is the power of conscious consumption. Just as we choose what food to put into our bodies, we must also choose what information and narratives to feed our minds. Balancing our media intake, seeking out positive and constructive stories, engaging with a diversity of perspectives, and critically evaluating the messages we receive can help counteract the mean world syndrome. It's about curating our informational environment to foster a more balanced, nuanced, and perhaps even more hopeful view of the complex and multifaceted universe we inhabit, both outside and within. Let's delve into a cognitive tendency that is as common as it is revealing about our human desire to maintain a positive self-image: the self-serving bias. In essence, this is our inclination to attribute our successes to our own internal qualities, our skill, our intelligence, our hard work, while blaming our failures on external factors, bad luck, difficult circumstances, or the actions of others. It's as if our ego has a built-in defense attorney, always ready to take credit for the wins and deflect blame for the losses. Consider a student who aces an exam. They're likely to credit their diligent studying and inherent smarts. But if they fail that same exam, well, the questions were unfair. The teacher didn't explain the material properly, or perhaps they just had a bad day. Similarly, an athlete might attribute a victory to their superior training and talent, but a loss might be blamed on poor officiating or unfavorable weather conditions. This isn't necessarily conscious deception, it's a largely automatic cognitive mechanism that helps protect our self-esteem and maintain a sense of competence and control. While this bias can be adaptive in small doses, protecting us from crippling self-doubt and motivating us to persevere, it can also be a significant barrier to personal growth and accurate self-assessment. If we consistently attribute failures to external forces, we miss valuable opportunities to learn from our mistakes, identify areas for improvement, and take genuine responsibility for our actions and their outcomes. It creates a distorted feedback loop, where we see ourselves as perpetually skilled and fortunate in success, and merely unlucky or victimized in failure. The path to overcoming the more detrimental aspects of the self-serving bias lies in cultivating a more objective and humble self-awareness. This involves consciously challenging our initial attributions, especially after a setback. Asking ourselves, what role did I play in this outcome? What could I have done differently? It requires a willingness to embrace accountability, to see failures not as indictments of our worth, but as data points for learning and refinement. By acknowledging our own contributions to both our triumphs and our tribulations, we move from a self-serving perspective to one that truly serves our long-term growth and understanding of our place in the grand cosmic scheme of cause and effect. In the vast lexicon of human expression, few signals are as universally understood or as potent as a smile. But not all smiles are created equal. There's one particular type of smile so genuine and reflective of true positive emotion that it has its own scientific designation. The Duchenne smile, named after the 19th century French neurologist Guillaume Duchenne, who studied the physiology of facial expressions. This isn't just any upturning of the lips, it's a smile that engages specific muscles around the eyes, creating those telltale crow's feet or crinkles at the outer corners. The Duchenne smile is considered the gold standard of genuine happiness or amusement because it involves the involuntary contraction of the orbicularis oculi muscle, which lifts the cheeks and narrows the eyes. A polite, social, or even feigned smile might only involve the zygomatic major muscle, which pulls up the corners of the mouth. But it's that engagement of the eyes, that sparkling crinkle, that signals to our brains an authentic burst of positive feeling. It's a subtle yet profound difference that our perceptive systems are surprisingly adept at detecting, even if unconsciously. Why does this matter? Because a Duchenne smile broadcasts trustworthiness, warmth, and genuine friendliness. When we see one, we're more likely to feel a connection, to perceive the smiler as sincere, and to reciprocate with positive feelings of our own. It's a powerful nonverbal cue that can build rapport, diffuse tension, and create an atmosphere of mutual goodwill. In a universe of complex social signals, the Duchenne smile is like a clear, bright beacon of positive intent, cutting through ambiguity and fostering connection. Cultivating genuine positive emotions is, of course, the most authentic way to produce a Duchenne smile. But simply being aware of its characteristics can make us more attuned to the emotional states of others and more mindful of the signals we ourselves project. It reminds us that our faces are incredibly expressive instruments, capable of conveying subtle but powerful messages that resonate deeply within the social fabric. So, the next time you share a moment of true joy, notice the feeling, and know that the universe of your expression is radiating something genuinely beautiful and connecting. We live in an age of unprecedented choice. From the myriad options for our morning coffee to the endless scroll of streaming services, the sheer volume of alternatives available to us can seem like a hallmark of freedom and progress. However, psychologist Barry Schwartz, in his seminal work, argues that this abundance can often lead to a surprising and counterintuitive outcome: anxiety, indecision, and ultimately, less satisfaction with the choices we finally make. It's as if our cognitive circuits can become overwhelmed by too much of a good thing. Imagine standing in a supermarket aisle faced with 50 different types of jam. While variety seems appealing initially, the process of evaluating each one, comparing ingredients, prices, and imagined flavors, can become mentally exhausting. The effort required to make an optimal choice increases, and so does the fear of making the wrong one. Even after a decision is made, the ghosts of the unchosen options can linger, leading to regret or a nagging feeling that perhaps another choice would have been better. This is the tyranny of small decisions amplified by a universe of options. Schwartz identifies several psychological mechanisms at play. Firstly, an overabundance of choice escalates our expectations. With so many options, we feel we'd be able to find the perfect one, making anything less than perfection feel like a disappointment. Secondly, it can lead to decision paralysis, where the sheer volume of choices becomes so daunting that we end up choosing nothing at all, or defaulting to a familiar suboptimal option simply to escape the cognitive burden. Finally, as mentioned, it can reduce satisfaction due to regret and the opportunity costs of foregoing other appealing alternatives. The wisdom emerging from the choice paradox isn't to eliminate choice entirely, but to recognize the value of good enough, and to strategically limit our options when possible. Sometimes, having fewer, well-curated choices can be more liberating and lead to greater contentment. It's about finding a balance between beneficial variety and overwhelming excess. By understanding this paradox, we can consciously simplify our decision-making processes, focus on what truly matters to us, and perhaps find a greater sense of peace in a world that constantly bombards us with an ever-expanding cosmos of choices. It seems like sound logic, doesn't it? To always have a plan B, a safety net, a fallback position in case our primary endeavor doesn't pan out. We're often lauded for such prudence and foresight. However, emerging psychological research suggests a fascinating and somewhat unsettling twist. The mere act of conceiving and focusing on a backup plan can, paradoxically, reduce our motivation and effort towards achieving our main goal. This is sometimes referred to as the risk reduction effect, and it taps into the delicate mechanics of human motivation and expectation. Consider the expectancy theory of motivation, which suggests that our motivation to pursue a goal is partly a function of how much we expect to succeed and how much we value that success. When we develop a detailed backup plan, it can subtly signal to our subconscious that we're not entirely confident in Plan A. This can lower our perceived likelihood of success for the primary goal and consequently diminish the drive and resources we're willing to commit to it. The safety net, while intended to provide security, might inadvertently make us less likely to perform the daring trapeze act of our main ambition. This doesn't mean that all contingency planning is detrimental. For critical situations or high-stakes endeavors, responsible planning is of course essential. However, the psychological nuance lies in, and we focus on that Plan B. If our mental energy becomes too invested in the alternative, it can divert focus and commitment from the primary objective. It's as if the comfort of knowing there's an escape route makes us less inclined to push through the difficult patches on the main path. the universe of our effort might just shrink a little. The key perhaps is to acknowledge potential risks and have a general sense of alternatives, but to keep our primary focus and strongest energetic investment firmly on Plan A, especially in the pursuit of ambitious goals. It's about walking a fine line. Being prepared for setbacks without letting the preparation for those setbacks undermine the very drive needed to avoid them in the first place. Understanding this risk reduction effect allows us to be more mindful of how we allocate our mental resources, ensuring our safety nets don't unintentionally become hammocks of complacency when striving for the stars. Our final journey into the mind's complexities brings us to Solomon's paradox, a phenomenon that many of us have likely experienced firsthand. Named after the biblical King Solomon, renowned for his profound wisdom in judging the disputes of others, this paradox describes our curious tendency to be far more adept at reasoning wisely about other people's problems than we are about our own. We can offer sagacious advice, see clear solutions, and maintain objective perspectives when a friend is facing a dilemma, yet find ourselves mired in confusion, emotional reactivity, and poor judgment when confronted with similar challenges in our own lives. Why is it that we can be such brilliant cosmic cartographers for others' life paths, yet get so lost in our own personal nebulae? The core reason often lies in psychological distance. When we consider someone else's problem, we are naturally more detached. We're not ensnared by the immediate emotional turbulence, the ego involvement, or the overwhelming personal stakes that cloud our judgment when the problem is ours. This emotional detachment allows for clearer, more rational, and more nuanced thinking, the very hallmarks of wise reasoning. When it's career dilemma, relationship conflict, or financial worry, our self is front and center. This proximity can trigger self-protective biases, emotional flooding, and a narrowed focus that prevents us from seeing the bigger picture or considering alternative perspectives. We're too close to the event horizon of our own problem to see its galactic context. Solomon, for all his wisdom in court, reportedly struggled with personal decisions, particularly in his later life, illustrating this very paradox. The powerful implication of Solomon's paradox is that if we can find ways to create psychological distance from our own problems, we can access that wiser, more objective part of ourselves. One effective strategy is self-distancing, which involves thinking about your problem as if it were happening to a friend, or considering it from a third-person perspective. What would your name do in this situation? Another approach is to imagine advising a friend who is facing your exact circumstances. By mentally stepping back, we can engage the same cognitive machinery that makes us such insightful counselors for others, and apply that wisdom to navigate our own cosmic challenges more effectively. And so, we've traversed these 12 fascinating landscapes of the human mind, uncovering some of the subtle, yet powerful forces that shape our thoughts, feelings, and actions. From the way we value what's absent to the paradoxes of choice and wisdom, it's clear that the universe within us is every bit as complex and wondrous as the cosmos without. These aren't just interesting facts, they are keys, tools you can use to unlock a deeper understanding of yourself and the intricate dance of human interaction that defines our lives on this pale blue dot. The journey into the human psyche is an ongoing exploration, a continuous unfolding. Each insight gained is like discovering a new constellation, offering new ways to navigate and appreciate the vastness of our inner worlds. And if you've watched the video this far, it means your focus isn't weak like others, and you're genuinely interested in human psychology. So, based on our recommendation, do watch the next video. You'll truly learn something that most people don't know. The quest for understanding is a hallmark of our species, and by turning that quest inward, we empower ourselves in truly profound ways. If you liked this video and found these psychological explorations as illuminating as a distant supernova, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more voyages into the marvels of the mind and the universe, and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Your engagement helps us continue to share these cosmic insights. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep looking inward and keep looking up.